Caught me red-handed. I made my first mill on OnlyFans. Just kidding. That's some devil shit. I'm going to show you how I made my first mill, but more importantly, how you can make your first or your next milli. So let's dive in. So here's how I made my first mill. And I did this at 21. I'm 27 right now, and I've made over $6 million online, and I haven't made anything less than $1 million since I was 21. And the very first thing that I want you to know is that Warren Buffett, his business partner Charlie Munger, said that the first 100K is the hardest, right? And I'm going to explain why the first 100K is the hardest and why you're maybe making 100 grand, maybe you're making, 100 to 500, but you can't really break through. You're maybe at that 10 to 40, 50K a month mark, and you want to get to that infamous milli and then scale up from there. Well, the thing is, this is harder than making a mill. Making $1 million is easy, and I'm going to show you how it's easy. And it's actually much easier than making $100,000 a year. Okay, and I'm going to show you as well as how to turn this $100,000 into your minimum standard every single month. Okay, and so that's what we're going to cover in this video. Now, the first thing you have to understand is you have to understand the word, and you have to understand this: leverage. You have to understand leverage. And I'm going to explain this in extreme detail. But the thing is, the reason why you're not able to scale, or why you're maybe stuck again at that 100K to 500K a year and you haven't been able to actually get to that $1 million a year, is because you're stuck in this lowest form of leverage. Now, if you've ever read the book, or if you ever studied Naval Ravikant, he talks about these 4 forms of leverage, right? And you should know this by now, but if not, basically you have the first form of leverage is labor. I can't write today. You have labor, right? And this is human capital, right? This is basically trading time for money, but this is really hiring or having people that actually you delegate to do the work. And this is the lowest form of leverage. So most businesses, they make millions of dollars even, right? They make tens of millions. Some businesses, like home service-based businesses, they leverage labor. They make hundreds of millions of dollars even doing this. So this is a higher form of leverage, right? Because right now, and we'll go into it, but right now you're actually operating at probably a level even in front of this where you are the laborer, right? So you're the one that's doing all the work, right? So again, if you're maybe running a marketing agency, you're doing the actual marketing systems, you're running the ads for the client, whatever, you're doing all the work. Or you're doing, let's say, one-on-one coaching or consulting, whatever you're doing. But if you don't do the work, you don't make money, right? That's beyond, that's even before this, and that's why you're stuck. But people who get, and start making, 10, 20, 30, 50K a month, or even upwards of that million, they start to leverage this form, which is labor. And I use a U because I'm from Canada, so we use that. But you have labor, okay? The second form of leverage is you have capital, okay? So this is money, okay? You have capital. So now what you're doing here is you've leveraged labor first, right? For example, right? Now you leverage some labor, right? You maybe delegate, you maybe have some, people overseas, in the Philippines or whatever, or you actually have in-house employees. You're leveraging labor. Now you've decoupled yourself from the actual work. Now you have other people that are doing the work, okay? That's one of the forms of leverage, right? You're using other people's time, right? Because, for example, you only have 24 hours in a day, right? You have 24 hours. But if you hire 10 people and they all have, let's say they give you 8 hours, now you have 80 hours a day that you're working and that you're able to leverage instead of your 24. And you won't work 24 hours. You may work, 12 hours if you're absolutely grinding, right? But now you got 80, which is 8 times leverage than what you can do now if you have 10 people that are working 8 hours full time for you. So that is a form of leverage, but it's the least efficient. I'd say what you're doing now is probably the least efficient form of leverage. But then you have capital, where now you decoupled yourself from trading time, this is a clock, for money, right? Because, for example, you can go and use 100K or turn 100K into $1 million, and now you just 10x your money. You're 10 times more efficient, right? Because you put up $100,000 in cash, and you could make this in, let's say, a month, right? Or even a day. Like some day traders and people that are trading money, like hedge fund managers, you turn 100K, or you buy a business, right? You venture capital, right? And you put 100K into a business, and let's say it spits out $1 million, right? That's a form of leverage, and you decouple now yourself from a trading time for money. Now, the third form of leverage is media, okay? And media is a high form of leverage because you can go viral, okay? This is virality. So you take, and this is creating content or taking a piece that you would usually do manually, and you turn it into a piece of media that can be viewed 100 million times or 10 million times or whatever, or 1 billion streams on Spotify, right? That's a form of media, and you can go viral, and you create this one piece of content one time, and again, it can get you millions of views. So you create one piece of content, and it can get, let's say, 100 million views. Or, for example, you take everything that you've been doing in your current business and you turn it into SOPs. You also maybe turn your services, and you turn that into a form of content in the form of resource documents, videos, like an online program. And now you're able to, you do it one time, and you can replicate it, and you can reproduce it, and you can distribute it infinitely amount of times without taking more of your time. And again, you can also leverage content that can get like 100 million views, and now you've decoupled yourself again from the time. Now, the fourth form of leverage is, I think, the most efficient, which is you have code, right? And this is software, right? Or systems, okay? Because you can create a system one time. Like, for example, look at Amazon, okay? Yeah, they do leverage they leverage all forms of these forms of leverage, right? But they're leveraging software, and they're leveraging systems. They have robots that are literally doing the work of humans, where they don't. It's way more efficient. And they have an online website, which is Amazon.com, that literally produces trillions of dollars of value and billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue every single year. And so they're able to get infinitely more forms of scale from this, right? And so they're leveraging, like Amazon leverages all forms of these forms of leverage, okay? So this is the basis that you need to understand, okay? You're probably operating above here, which you're at level 0, which is you are the manual laborer that is getting paid slightly above an average hourly wage, where again, you're making, 100K, 500K a year, but you have no form of leverage. Now, again, if you're a little bit more advanced, a little bit smarter, then you have employees outsourcing this stuff, but you're still stuck here. And that's why you're only making 100K, 500K, and you haven't made your first mil. And I'm going to show you how I took this and how I made my first mil, and how it also provided me a lot of time freedom, and how I was able to just literally print, and I was able to make a lot of money doing this stuff, okay? So let's go into that. So this is the basic understanding. You need to understand leverage, okay? So let's go into how I made my first mil. So let me tell you, and I'll go into more depth on my actual story. And if you want to learn more about my story, and you also want to learn a little bit more about this, I'm doing a live webinar tomorrow on Wednesday, September 18th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. I'll drop the link below. Go register for that. I'm going to break all this stuff down in extreme details. But this is how I made my first mil at 21. So basically, when I was starting out, I was making around, well, I was making shit money, but I was making like $1,500 a month, right? And I had a marketing agency, and what I was doing is I was going door to door, right? So I was going door to door. I was also doing cold calling, right? I was doing the cold emails. I was doing the whole nine, right? I then started to leverage, LinkedIn and start building better systems. And I was able to scale this marketing agency in lead gen to $40,000 a month. Okay. I was able to get it to like $40K a month. I had one media buyer that would run ads for me. I had one appointment setter that would set me appointments. I had one basically VA that would help me. And that's basically it. I was able to make $40K per month doing this. And I was around 20 years old doing this. So I'm 27 now. So this was like 7 years ago when nobody was doing this shit. So I was making around $40K a month. Again, I had a media buyer. He'd run the ads. So he was basically fulfillment. I had appointments. I would set appointments. I had a VA that would help with like onboardings, copywriting, all that stuff, right? And I was helping financial advisors get high net worth clients. That's what I did there. But at this, I hit a cap. I was capped out. I think I was on the upper echelon. I was making 40 grand a month. But what helped me is I was leveraging inefficient ways of doing it, because every single new client that I brought in, we had to do the work for them, right? And so it was every single time I was capped in the amount of people clients I could bring on, unless I hired more people, which is the least efficient form of leverage, which is human capital, which is labor, right? So basically I thought, okay, well, how can I, increase more leverage? And so basically I had a skill which I mastered, which was acquiring at the time clients from LinkedIn, right? I don't do that anymore. I'll show you even a more efficient way in this video on how you actually can scale. But that's how I originally did it. I leveraged systems. I built an automation. We leveraged automation software, and boom, we built good systems. And I was able to basically build a good skill so I can get a skill to 40K a month. Then I had a lot of agency owners say, okay, how did you do this stuff? So now we go into how I made my first mil. So once you have let's say a skill, or let's say you have you have a level of mastery at some particular thing. Now, it doesn't even necessarily have to be like you getting extra astronomical results, like made millions of dollars before you do this stuff. Like, I'll give you a prime example. You have to create a leveraged program, because if you're doing services can only scale to the level and degree in which you create the systems and the labor and people. But this is not scalable, right? Because again, you're still trading time for money, or you're trading other people's time for money, right? Which is, again, still very, very inefficient. So what you actually need to do is you actually need to go and you need to create a leveraged service. And this is exactly what I did, okay? A leveraged service that can scale. And so what a leveraged service consists of was basically taking all of the components that have the leverage components, and instead of leveraging labor, I leveraged media first, right? So media is an extremely efficient form of leverage. So I turned my system and my process into a level of videos. So I had the content, right? We leveraged systems. So I had code now, which again, you can use no code. You can also use other people's software, but we leveraged, so this is content. We leveraged software, right? And we also leveraged online platforms that were enable us to create online training portals and programs and stuff to basically help clients in terms of getting more things. So basically we created an online leverage program, because what you're doing here is you're leveraging media, you're leveraging code, right? To combine these things into an efficient way to get the client the same or even better. Honestly, I was getting better results when we were doing, and we packaged this into a coaching and basically a leverage program that people can go in, and it had a systematic approach to getting them results. Okay. So think about what you're doing, and I'll give you a prime example of this where you can term this, because I was actually thinking about this in my meditation this morning about one of my best friends. So one of my best friends growing up, and this is how he could do it, and I'll give you an example. So he actually runs the sports betting for all of ESPN for hockey. Okay, now he has a really good skill. Now, when we were growing up, he was a bookie in high school, and so he basically just now runs he runs the books for all of the ESPN app for hockey of all of Canada and North America. So that's basically, he has a skill now, right? He knows, and basically he leveraged, he knows the spreadsheet, he knows the odds, he has algorithms and formulas, right? Like, for example, he could go and he could create a program on how to make 6 figures sports betting, right? He knows all sports, but he's a specialist in hockey, all sports, right? So he knows, and like the thing is, he can do this because he has a skill where he's made 6 figures doing it. He also runs the books doing this process. So what he could do is he could create a leveraged program teaching people how to essentially make more money sports betting, right? And so he could package what he knows into a form of videos, in a form of systems that people can leverage to get a particular result. Okay, now he's at a job right now. He's making 6 figures doing what he loves to do, but he could now make millions of dollars by packaging what his skill is. Right, you take this skill. Or again, think about what skill you have. It might be marketing, it might be advertising, it might be sales, whatever it is, and now you transform that into a leveraged program where you're leveraging media, you're leveraging code, softwares to combine them. And again, a lot of these tools these days are no code. You don't need to know how to code. You just literally use a course platform. You leverage video, you leverage Zoom, you put some videos in a portal. You also, do some coaching on top of that, and you can create that. Now, again, I'm going to go into more depth on how you actually can create these programs. I'll drop that in the description, but you're using leverage, okay? So now you have the program, which is leverage. Now, in order to scale, and how I scaled, so now I have this leveraged program, okay? I have a leveraged program where I can put 500 people into this thing. I actually sold over 1,200 clients into this program, okay? So it has high leverage. With an agency, it's gonna break. You're gonna be stressed. You're gonna have to hire a lot of employees if you try to get to 1,200 clients. Okay, so it's inefficient. So it's leverage. You can scale it. You create it one time, and you can sell it basically infinite amount of times. So you create it once, right, and then you just replicate and you create this chain link over and over again, right? So you build once. Right? And you can sell infinite. And it doesn't cost you more time. Okay? You build once, you sell an infinite amount of times. And that is leverage. Okay? And again, if you're not selling this now, it's a high ticket leverage program. If you're not selling these, this is the most efficient. This is how I made my first mil. Okay? Now we have the leverage program. Now we're leveraging, at this point, I was leveraging the media, I was leveraging code. Now I started leveraging, so now I have the program, right? Now, before I was using inefficient ways of getting clients. I was doing manual cold calling, I was doing cold email, I was using LinkedIn, right? But now I started to leverage capital. Okay, this is an extremely high form of leverage as well. Okay? What I mean by this is with these ad platforms, I was able to put in $1 every day, and I was able to get out $3 to $5 every single day like clockwork. And I went and started spending $3,000 per day. I scaled up to that point. Now, I'm going to show you can start very small, but this is how I did it. So originally, I was spending let's say $500 a day. but I ended up scaling up to $3,000 a day, which is $90K a month on ads. And you're like, wow, that's a lot of money you spend on ads. Yeah, but I was making $250K in cash every single month, right? Every single month. And so for the first milli, right, you need to basically, if you do the math, you put in, let's say 10 to 20K on ads, and it's going to spit out 100K a month, right? Now, you're going to basically scale up to this point, because what you also have to understand with capital is it creates compound interest. Einstein said that compound interest is the ninth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. Think about it. You're paying interest. You're paying the inflation. You're paying on all this credit card debt, all this stuff. You're paying it. But people who make millions of dollars, we earn it. So what you can do with this is you can start with as small as $100 a day. Okay, now you have this leverage program. You start with $100 a day, right? And let's say your leverage program is at least 5K, which is what I recommend, right? Into a 5K, all the way it can be up as high as 50,000, but let's just say it's 5K, right? You put in $100, right? And let's say it costs you, let's say, out of that you get appointments. Let's say you close 1 in every 10, you get $100 appointments or $10 leads, right? And I know these numbers like the back of my hand. We can go into more depth. Actually, my last video, I talk about this on how to actually print 100K a month, which you can go check that out on my channel. But you put in $100, right? And let's say it costs you $1,500 to acquire a client, 1.5K, right? Well, that you spent 1.5K to make 5 bands. You do this every single day of the week. This is what people don't understand. So you put in this, and let's say that takes you roughly, take you 15 days, boom, 2 weeks or whatever, or less, boom, you close your first client. You're going to get, it depends on how well you can close. Maybe I'll make more videos on sales later on that as well. But then, boom, you make 5K. Then what you do is you take, now instead of spending $100 a day, now you say, okay, I'm going to spend $300 a day, right? Now $300 a day, you can now, let's say you scale up. Now you're making, let's say, 15K. You get 3 sales, right? And it's all about this number of costs to acquire clients. And if you're priced at 5 bands, you can spend that all day, every day of the week, and you can scale up. And then what you do is you basically, you have the funds, right? You spend the small amount of money, you get more money, right? And you can even put this on and leverage credit, business credit, and you can get 4x points. So you can also travel for free. I got this laptop, brand new MacBook for free. I travel anywhere where I want for free because you get points. You get 4x points by leveraging this. You're floating the funds. Now again, you need to know how to do all of this stuff to make it actually work, right? But now you make more money. What you do is you feed it back through, and you spend more money, and you get back out more money. And it's a feedback loop. And you just keep printing this. And again, you can float this ad spend on business credit, and you can print money. That's what you do. And then your business goes like this. Why? Because you're adding all 4 forms of leverage. Now what's going to happen though, at a certain period of time, you're going to get capped. Your time's going to be now capped because you're going to be doing sales calls, right? You're going to be closing, and you can do only, let's say, max 8 per day or whatever, or 6 a day, whatever your max is. Also, again, you can do this to fit your lifestyle. If you want to take calls 4 hours a day, then you close 1 in every 4 people. You're now making 5 bands a day, per day, right? Over 30 days, you're making 500, or let's say you're working 20 days out of the 30-day week, because your weekends, you take them off, you go to church, whatever you want to do. You're making 5 times 30 or 20, let's say, is $100,000. This is how you can make money, okay? This is how you literally print, and this is how I made my first mil, okay? I literally just did this, okay? And so now I'm leveraging all 4 forms of leverage. Now, let's say you're capped, right? You're capped again. Oh shit, I'm trading time for money. Now I'm just making more money, right? I'm using these forms of leverage. Okay, what you do is now you can leverage labor again, and you have a sales rep take the calls. And so when we were doing 250K a month, I had 3 reps, and I was not on the phones. I was running the ads to fill my guys' calendars. I was using leverage. I had a leverage program that we were selling people into. I was using media. I was using labor, and I'm using capital. I'm spending money, and I'm printing. This is how you can scale up, okay? And so you want to use these forms of leverage. And again, you're leveraging all 4 forms, right? You're leveraging labor now because you can now remove yourself from that. And again, at that point, I would just have to jump on maybe like 2 to 4 hours of consulting, coaching calls a week, and then the rest of my time was free. And I had sales reps closing deals. I was running the ads because I like to do it myself. And I actually eventually had a media buyer do it as well, but I like to be in there. So I had a guy running the ads for me. I had a community manager, so that's a client success coach, that was running all this stuff. And I would just jump on basically 2 to 4 hours a week, and I would just make sure the business is pumping along, making money. So this is how I made my first mil. Okay, and this is how you can make your first mil as well. And again, I go into more depth on this in my other training. You can see that. I recently exited the last business. I started a new business called Revolutionaire, where I'm starting a revolution of creating millionaires. Also with tapping into that God-given purpose within them. And so again, if you love, like my buddy that loves sports betting, he could turn that into a leverage program for like sell it for 5K, for example, and he could teach people how to make money doing sports betting. And now he's decoupled from his job making 6 figures, and he could now be printing and put in $100 a day, make out 5, and do that every day of the week, scale up to 100K a month, and he can be working less, have more time freedom, love and spend more time with his daughter. He could also be printing money. He could have other people doing the calls for him, closing and doing all the sales, and he could be just absolutely racking it up, and just all he has to do is dial in this system. Okay, and this is how I made my first mil. This is how all my friends made their first mil. This is how guys like you see online, Hermosi made their first mil. This is how Sam Ovens made their first mil, and these guys also made tens of millions of dollars. This is how they do it. Becker, Iman Gadzhi, all these guys do the same thing. Okay, now this is the whole process. Now again, if you want to learn this in more depth, I'm doing a live training, which you can go register below, where I'm actually going to show you how to build out this whole model, how you can actually implement this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to show you the whole model. I call it the 7-figure model. It's very, very simple that you can use to make at least 100K a month online, and how to go from about that 10K or at least netting 10K a month to at least $1 million plus. And again, either make your first mil or make your next mil and start printing millions of dollars by doing this stuff. Okay, this is how I made my first mil. This is how I made over $6 million doing this stuff online. And again, I haven't made anything less than $1 million since I was 21 years old. So hopefully you found massive value in this video. If you like this video, subscribe, comment below your biggest takeaway. And if you want to see why I exited my 7-figure business, you can watch that video here. And if you want to see how to actually print 100K a month, you can watch that here. So that's the video. I'll see you in the next one. God bless.